So Epic 7 went and revamped the raid. One of the things they did that a lot of people haven't even realized yet is they made raid like a regular labyrinth, in that if you go out of the raid, you leave and go back in, all the mobs come back to life. You have to fight them again even if you've already explored the area. So no more clearing the path for the next entry. You've got to fight them each time, and that means you basically have to do 5 entrances or 10 lab tokens to clear the entire labyrinth. And that's just not something that I want to do. Now, one thing they did change, which is nice, is you can make a beeline for the queen. You don't have to kill 2 bosses to unlock access to the queen. So I think what I'm planning on doing is just going in every week, killing the queen for the bug tokens, because look at this gear. It's all level 80 gear. This is really good gear for starter, new, and very early mid-game players, but I'm just not about this. So I put together the Yufine full clear, does it by herself auto team. This team's pretty awful. It takes about 3 hours to clear the entire labyrinth, so set some time aside, run it while you're working, etc. But this is the bones of the team, and I'll explain how it works, because it's not as clean as just picking these units. Everybody knows about this team, but I want to explain the details. First and required is shooting star Hades. There's no other option. You have to have this unit. You need her imprint to be on group imprint, because you want that 15% effect resistance to be on top of Yufine. Gear, artifact, none of that really matters. Just give her enough to survive and enough speed to take some turns. Yufine is where we have a lot of tech built into this unit. First and foremost, has to have counter set. That's a must. No way around it. Secondly, you want to make sure she has at least 200% effect resistance. Now, she's got 183 here, plus another 15 from Shooting Star Hades imprint. I kind of screwed up. She's only at 197, so I was taking a 3% risk when I fought bosses who could strip. Try to get that extra percent. Now, she is a warrior, so you can use artifacts like Strat Gauntlet to give you 40 to 60 more resistance, but since I could get there without it, I use Sigurd's Scythe, and the reason is it gives 25% bonus to attack. That comes right off of the top of the 70% penalty that's given by the low morale. So I'm already from that 70%, I'm down to 45% penalty to my attack. With the Arky's Blessing, Guardian's Blessing from Arky, that's another 20%, and I decided to go with Conqueror Lilius because Vigor would give me another 30% to attack, so it basically eliminates the morale penalty to my attack. Now, her S2 skill you can never use. It's got a speed buff on it, and you need Yufine to be slow. You notice her 109 speed close to base speed. Her S3 has an effectiveness buff on it, so you only need 15% effectiveness to get maximum chance for her S1 defense break. I've got Mola in these skills, you don't need it. In fact, there is such a thing as too much damage. She needs to kill things slow enough that the enemy can attack her and trigger counters, because the magic of this is her S1 EE, a 35% chance to extend any buffs she's wearing, and that's how this works. She has the immortality buff, and every time she S1s, there's a 35% chance that she'll extend it, and she's got counter set on, which is a 30% chance that she'll counter, and that may not seem like a lot, but at minus 50 morale, she's going to be moving so potato slow, she's going to get dozens of hits between turns, and she's going to rack up those buffs, and it's going to keep her from losing immortality. Now, those are the only 2 units you have to have. The other 3 units are optional. I took Conqueror Lilius because I wanted the Vigor buff to give her more attack, and it seemed like a nice buff to have. And also Conqueror Lilius dual attacks help out. And I took Ed because Ed can just about handle every single boss in the Labyrinth, so he was a good one for extra clear. But most importantly, it got me the morale. When you build a team, there are 3 things you have to have. 1, you have to have Yufine and Shooting Star Hades, no exceptions. 2, you have to have a team that you can manually clear Carcanus and manually clear Juleave Council. And 3, you need a team that gives you at least 21 morale. So to start this out, you just head towards Carcanus. put the whole thing on auto. I turned Yufine's skills off so that she didn't accidentally use her S2 skill and give herself a speed buff that I couldn't get rid of later. Because trust me, she'll proc that S1EE constantly and you'll never get rid of that speed buff once it's on. So once you get to this bottom right corner, either go to full manual or just turn everybody's skills off to clear this last boss. Once this last boss is dead, you'll be at negative 23 morale. That'll put you at negative 24 once we go inside to fight Carcanus, and that'll put us below the 30 morale mark when we're done, which is perfect timing. So you need to manually kill Carcanus, saving all your skills. You can do it mostly with S1s all the way through. You do have Shooting Star Katie's S3 for an emergency backup heal should it be needed. Hindsight being 20/20, I should have put Ed in the front and Shooting Star in the back. Probably would have saved some lives, but keep going till you get to the point where you can Archie Carcanus to death and where you aren't silenced or stunned. Once you get to the point where one Archie will kill it, you're ready to stack our buffs on Yufine. So I started out with the S3 from Conqueror Lilies to get the Vigor buff. Ironically, this didn't do me any good because I screw up later in the fight and totally lose the Vigor buff off of Yufine, so she didn't even have it.
I'll hug you tight.
Alternate units you can run, Green Rin gives all kinds of buffs. You can run Furious or Sidon for a crit chance buff and drop Yufine's crit chance even lower. Archie's Blessing is a great buff to have because it's plus 30% attack and or 20% attack and plus 20% to crit chance, which is why Yufine's running at 80% crit. Now there's one thing that can stop us at this point. There's a random chance that Shooting Star Katie's could have given Yufine a speed buff. If that happens, you gotta restart. There's no way around it. You can't have speed buff on Yufine or it makes this darn near impossible. I got a defense buff, not exactly the one I wanted, but hey, it's not speed buff, so it works. So now we just keep walking in circles, teleporting back to the center, walking left and right. The goal is to get us down to negative 50 morale. Once we're at negative 50 morale, we're at max penalty, and we can start clearing the area. Now, hindsight being 20/20, instead of going north towards the Queen, I should have headed back towards Carcanus. If you hang a right at the first intersection or a left at the second intersection, there's a boss fight with all fire mobs. It takes Yufine forever to kill them, and because of that, she racks up her buffs to maximum very, very quickly. I went north, and because of it, I didn't exactly have optimal luck using her EE, and I wound up losing the Vigor buff, but I maintained the important buffs. I maintained the Immortality, the attack buff, and really this is the only two that you need. In the middle of the fight at some point in time, I turned auto off so that I could use her S3 to get the effectiveness buff on her, and I threw out another Archie right there to get the Archie's Blessing buff back on her. The Queen racks up her speed so fast that by the time you leave the Queen fight, you will have stacks beyond 9. And that's important to note too. Even though your buffs only show 9s, you're way beyond 9. It continues to increase the buff stacks even though the screen only shows 9. I think I was at about plus 20. People have argued with me that it's just a visual thing and that it really is just 9, but it's not. Trust me, I added the effectiveness buff and I watched it drop from 9 all the way down to 4 and then climb back up to 9, and my other buffs stayed at 9 the entire time. So what you want to do now is go out and clear the entire area. Now, I cleared everything and then went back and did the bosses because this was my first run through and I wasn't 100% sure that I'd be able to full auto some of the bosses, and I didn't want to have to do this a second time. So I just walked around and cleared the entire map, all of it, and then I went back and cleared the bosses. You don't have to do that. Trust me, now that I've tested it, you're fine. The only thing you have to do is go after Carcanus first and manual him, and you go to Jewleaf Council last. You cannot use this cheese on Jewleaf Council. You have to manual that, and that's why it's important to have 21 morale on your team, so that after Jewleaf Council kills you and you fail and you die, you can use the free revive. Remember, you get free Skystone revive one time. Use the free revive, and that revives you in the camp spot. You camp because you've got your entire team back. You do your camp, you get your 21 plus morale. That takes you from minus 50 down to only minus 29 or lower, and that lets you fight the Jewleaf Council manually without all the morale penalties and hopefully defeat it. there is no optimal pathing to do on this because you're already at negative 50 morale. You can wander around as much as you want. Things are never going to get worse for you than they already are, and you're going to defeat all of the enemies via your counterattacks. Now you can use this similar strategy in Nixied level 4 and 5. I think below Nixied 4 and for some of the lower levels, you're going to have a very hard time using the strategy just simply because the mobs are so weak that Yufine will just kill them too quickly. So quickly that she won't get enough counters to make this strategy work. There are some mobs in Nixied 4 and 5 that you can use Crescent Moon Rin to steal their counterattack buff, which is better than a counter set because that lets you counter on every single attack. And then you can go with any set that you want. You do want to stack some attack and some crit damage on her, though really your damage is not the most important thing. The hardest part, there's one boss called a Charger that every other turn gives himself a shield. That drove me nuts because my Yufine couldn't break the shield without a defense break. So I basically had to counter, land a defense break, and then counter again and hit through the defense break. The two Charger fights took forever. This entire video is about 18 minutes long. In reality, this fight took just a hair under 3 hours. So you are looking at a pretty significant time investment. This is the Charger fight that's happening right now. You can see the shield just keeps restoring, and every once in a while I get a hit through and do some damage. So it gives you an idea of how awful this fight is. So you do want to have some damage on your Yufine so you can punch through this shield a little bit easier than this. Otherwise it's just going to... I think this one fight took almost 20 minutes. If you want to build your Yufine with only 30% crit chance, you can use units like Furious or Cdom for a crit chance bonus. It's 50% crit chance plus Arky's Blessing for another 20% crit chance. That's 80% crit chance. You can get away with I guess you can get away with a 20% crit chance on your Yufine at that point. I hope I'm getting the math right. Look up Arky's Blessing before you trust my numbers. I might be wrong on that. And no, for people who are wondering, there really is no other unit that can realistically do this. Mercenary Helga has a similar cheese where her S2, if it crits, will extend buffs. So you could put Prophetic Candlestick on her and manually click her S2 whenever she takes a turn and keep extending the buffs, but you would have to manual the whole thing instead of auto. It would probably take 6 hours instead of 3. And also, she has to crit to extend the buffs, so you'd be suffering a 50-50 shot of that happening because she has to have Prophetic Candlestick for it to work. And I just don't think it's a good idea to use it. So if you don't have Yufine, you just got to do this the old-fashioned way, taking a high morale team and clear all 5 bosses individually. I don't think the way they've got the morale laid out anymore, I don't think you can kill 2 bosses in one run anymore. It'll take full 5 entries to do it. So I finally finished exploring the entire map. I ran back to Vera. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to kill Vera. I was worried that the eggs would heal her when they hatch, but this doesn't have that Hell Raid mechanic. When the eggs hatch, they don't heal Vera, so you can burst through her pretty quickly. And because I've got the 200% effect resistance, or darn close to it, Vera was never able to stun me. If you're lucky and you get immunity from Shooting Star Hades, it gives you an extra layer of protection because the immunity can be nested inside of the other buffs. So that if you can't quite get to the 200% effectiveness mark with imprints and artifacts and everything, you can keep restarting this until Shooting Star Hades gives you that immunity buff. But remember, you still have to take the long walk to Carcanus and kill him before you can set her buffs. So that can take some extra time. Ran up to kill Devourer. Devourer took a little bit longer than I expected, but still went very cleanly. Although the ads heal him, the ads don't heal him fast enough, and her counters made pretty quick work, especially when she's stuck a defense break. So now everybody's dead except for Jewleaf Council. I went into Jewleaf Council, got to the first split phase right here, And as you can see, as soon as Yufine took a turn, the ads stripped, and of course they stripped her immortal first. And once her immortal was gone, she died in one hit, and the run failed. This is why I was stressing earlier, you need to have at least 21 morale from your camping team, because you use the free revive, you revive in the camp spot, and now you can camp. My team, I believe, has 21 or 23 morale. Regardless, it's enough. As long as you can get to negative 29 or lower, you got it in the bag. So enjoy Yufine's lovely voice here.
Cheer up! I'm here for you! Look how cute I am! Doesn't that make you feel better?
I don't want to belong anywhere. I want to keep on wandering. Keep on adventuring.
Well, 23 morale it was after all, so I will jump from negative 27 to negative 28 once I enter the fight, but that's still enough where I can do this fight manually. So much like the Carcanus fight, I'm largely using Ed for this. One really nice thing about this fight is as long as I don't S3 with Conqueror Lilius, I don't really have anybody that drops a lot of debuffs. So I don't have to worry about stacking buffs on Julie of Council. Now I got really lucky at the first split. The first mob I attacked was the target mob, so it cleared out fast. The second split, not so lucky. I had to kill every single one of them. But I got through them all and was able to get it to the point where all I had to do was throw an Archie and the fight was over. I got to admit I was holding my breath a little bit. I wasn't sure that was going to work, but pulled it off, and there you go. That's 100% full clear in one run. You can check the map again. Always do this to make sure you didn't miss any spot. Everything needs to be blue. Don't forget to hit Alexa's shop there and make sure it's covered in blue. This will give me the full clear reward, and now I don't ever have to do this again. I plan to just pop in once a week, kill the queen for the bug charm, and maybe pick up some artifact charms every now and again. But there you go. If you really want to do this every week, it's a great way to farm that currency, 1280 currency for buying artifact and ring, or for buying ring and neck charms. So I hope this guide gives a visual representation of what many other people have put together. This is not my original concept. The Yufine solo cheese has been out there for a very long time. I just decided to put a video together so that you could get this full clear, get the 500 currency and the 10 shop currency to buy some artifact charms, and put this fight to bed. If you have any questions, ask them in the comment section, and if you enjoyed the video and content, give a like and maybe consider a subscribe. Have a great one, guys.